Hello and welcome. You are watching episode 12 of 90 Minutes to Close the Loop, the web series by Close the Glass Loop, the European platform for glass collection and recycling, founded in 2020 and celebrating today its 4th anniversary. Yes, the platform is already 4 years old, so happy birthday to us. We've come a long way. A lot has happened already, and I am quite sure that it's just the beginning of our journey together as we push for our 90% glass collection for recycling target by 2030. And what better represents our growth and our community of practitioners and operators of glass collection and recycling than our LinkedIn platform, which has grown to more than 2,300 followers this week and demonstrates the interest taken by the whole value chain to reach our common objective. Now, the question is, where do our followers actually come from? And we will now reveal our top 10 cities. Of course, Brussels comes first. It's where our European founding partner associations are based, as well as our national partners, FOS+. Second is Paris, where CTO is based. In third and fourth place come 2 Portuguese cities, Porto and Lisbon, which says something about our great collaboration with our friends of Plataforma Vidro Mais. Fifth is Bucharest, who jumped up in the rankings since we organized the launch event of the Romanian national platform earlier this year, and you'll be hearing about that later. We then have Madrid, where our friends at Ecovidrio are based, followed by Istanbul, where we have very active members from both Verver and FIVE. The general area of Amsterdam in the Netherlands, which also joined Close the Glass Loop this year, comes next, and you'll be hearing about that later. In 9th place is Sao Paulo in Brazil, which hopefully shows that our efforts in Europe can also have an impact around the world. And in 10th place is Milan, where our national partners Correve are based. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of our community of practice. So happy birthday to all of you. Now, in today's episode, we'll be looking at the links between recycled content and decarbonisation for glass. But first of all, some context. There are 2 main pathways to decarbonize the glass industry. One is to act on the source of energy to melt and transform the raw materials into glass, which accounts for approximately 80% of CO2 emissions. And the other is to act on the process emissions, which is the CO2 emissions released by virgin raw materials when they are melted. And this accounts for approximately 20% of CO2 emissions. So it's clear that making glass melting technology evolve towards decarbonized energy sources is the decisive factor in the glass industry's trajectory towards decarbonization. But in this episode, and indeed with Close the Glass Loop, we look at recycled content, and we'll be looking at recycled content and decarbonization from 3 different angles. Will decarbonized furnaces affect the potential for the uptake of secondary raw materials? Can recycled content drive the decarbonization of the whole life cycle of a product with a focus on premium products from the beauty sector? And how can more recycled content be incorporated into furnaces through innovations in the supply of secondary raw materials? After each case study, we'll have some Q&A time with each speaker, and then we will move to the annual event part of the episode with the release of the latest glass collection for recycling rate 2022 and presentations from 2 national platforms of Close the Glass Loop. So please, as usual, put your comments and questions in the chat or the Q&A tab, and I'll be making the link with our speakers throughout this session. So if you're ready, let's dive straight into the furnace. And I am pleased to introduce Joris Goossens. He is R&D Project Manager at ADA Glass Packaging Europe, in charge of the Next Gen Furnace project, and indeed managing new melting technology projects within the company. Joris, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleased to be here.
And take it away.
Okay. Oops. Opening slide. So I'm very pleased that we are able to present the Next Gen Furnace project to this LinkedIn live event, Close the Glass Loop, on the recycled content of decarbonization. Thank you for the nice introduction, Jean-Paul. Before we dive into this, the project itself, let me. Yes, here it is. Some quick words about ADA Group. ADA Group is a global group with a big revenue. You see that close to $10 billion with 62 production facilities worldwide, producing both both glass containers and metal containers, with some 20,000 employees globally. Globally means the Americas, Africa, and Europe. And in everything we do, sustainability is a key factor, is very important. And of course, we know this can be more expensive. And this is, of course, always a vital condition to our effort to minimize environmental impact. It has to be economically sustainable, socially responsible. And with this in mind, there is a big sustainability strategy. This is the one for ARA glass. There is a similar one, but a little bit different for ARA metal. And here you see pillars showing different subjects, and all of that is linked to the UN sustainability goals. And the first pillar is minimize our greenhouse gas emissions, and this is the pillar where, of course, the next gen furnace project is located. But next to this pillar, we have our pillar minimizing ecological impact, water and waste, and of course the third pillar on social, people and communities. Let's go to the project. This is an artist impression picture we use even before the furnace was being built. So as a communication tool, and it shows some important elements of the project. A brand new building with the lines pointing towards the future, and inside you see the furnace with the main elements of the electrodes heating the glass, the white blue pillars inside the glass, and there is still some radiative heat above the glass. And next to the furnace, you see the solar panels, which are there to feed the electrical heating system with new renewable electricity. And on the right hand bottom, you see the logos of the German grant we received for this project, funded by the Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs in Germany, and that was funded again by the Resilience and Recovery Fund of the EU. So to understand what we did, I have to dive into the technology of glass making a little bit, and first explain, probably most of you know a little bit about this, but explain what the current way of glass production is in Europe, the state-of-the-art way of doing that, before we explain, or to explain what the difference is with the technology in next gen. So in the current technology, we use furnaces you see in the upright corner, the state-of-the-art air-fired regenerative furnace. And these furnaces are used to convert the raw materials, where cullet is the main raw material for container glass production. Cullet and raw materials like sand, soda ash, and limestone into a liquid. So they have to be dissolved at high temperatures into a liquid, so that the liquid glass can go to the forming station to be formed into bottles. And because it requires a high temperature, it's an energy intensive industry, and we run these furnaces in a continuous way. And typically these furnaces run up to 15 years. And these furnaces this technology is a very versatile technology. This type of furnace, which you see in this picture, is fit for different pool rates, production rates that is, different colors, different color levels. So it's a very versatile technology. And the CO2 emissions from this type of furnaces come from both the melting energy and the raw materials which decompose. Some raw materials decompose and release CO2, soda ash, limestone, dolomite. And this glass melting technology is used, the furnace you see is mainly fired by gas heating. So let's say at least 85% till 100%. And sometimes it's added by boosting, as we call it. These are the little red pins you see sticking into the furnace, which add additional heating capacity, and that's electrical. The specific emissions of these furnaces, they have been worked on since decades. This type of furnace is already 150 years old. So the entire glass community has worked to reduce the specific emissions, and in the last decades this has decreased tremendously. But we are reaching, let's say, the thermodynamical plateau, where further improvements are very tough and nearly impossible, because we reach this thermodynamical limit. And that's where a breakthrough is needed, both because the technology is mature, and also because we are closing in on 2050, which is less than 2 furnace lifetimes away. And of course, there is an alternative, which is called all-electric melting. All-electric melting is available since many, many, many years. It's a very performant technology, delivers very good glass quality, and is a very energy-efficient system. But it has its severe technical limitations. You see a picture of an all-electric furnace on the left, and the way it works is this cylinder is filled with glass and covered with a batch blanket. And this batch blanket, batch and both colored, has to be very stable. It has to be intact at all times. And because of this limitation, the pool of this furnace is limited to 200 tons per day max. It depends on the color and depends on the type of glass, but let's say 200 tons max. And also the amount of color which can be used in this type of furnace is limited to around about 50%. And this type of furnace cannot produce all glass colors. It can only produce oxidized glass colors, which means the lighter greens, the blues and flint glass, but not amber and not the darker greens. And the idea is now to see, can we break these technical limits and remain as all electric as possible, taking into account that this type, that using all electrical heating at a high level influences or affects the furnace lifetime. Because of the higher glass temperature, the more intense glass flow, the furnace lifetimes are shorter, and also the way they wear and the way you maintain the furnace are different. So with this in mind, we said, let's go for a new technology trying to decarbonize industrial size container glass production with maximum decarbonization. So trying to go as all electric as we can go, but breaking all the limits. And the specification for this project was a furnace 350 tons a day, so breaking the 200 tons per day limit with 70% colored, breaking the 50% colored limit. Amber beer bottle, amber being a reduced color, so breaking the color limit of all electric melting. So breaking all these limits and going as all electric as we can go. And the limit we think the limit in this new design is 80% electrical heating. We still need 20% radiative flame heat, so 20% oxygas in this new design. And this oxygas, we choose oxygas because in oxygas you are quite flexible in your burner position. So there is some flexibility there. There is, on top of that, we have flexibility to switch between 20 and 80% electrical heating and vice versa, 80 and 20% oxygas. And this is because we wanted to start up the furnace as conventional as possible. And we also do it as a risk mitigation. It's a new technology, so we have to, we're not sure it works the entire range, so some mitigation there. We choose Obenkirchen plant because that's where we already had an oxygen installation in place and the grid connection is available. The electrical power is available. So this is the furnace. With this in the back of our minds, we went to the market and asked for the different concepts of different suppliers. And this is where we had a long talk with different suppliers and finally chose the Zorg Clean Melter design. And this is what the design looks like. And it's a combination of known design elements by Zorg in earlier furnaces. But of course, the new one is this matrix of bottom electrodes, delivering this up to 80% electrical heating. I will speed up. The status of the furnace is it has been built in the Obenkirchen facility in Lower Saxony in Germany. It has been built between May and August last year, and it started up. So first glass out, glass flow was September 2023. We did some tests, etc., before we color changed to amber and started production in amber glass in October 2023. And it's running commercial production ever since at a pull rate round about 300 tons and a color rate of 70%. And we are ramping up the electrical heating level. It uses, for all the electrical heating, we use new renewable electricity from the start on. And currently the electrical heating level is at 60% and we are still ramping up towards 80. But you can imagine that getting closer and closer to 80, we take smaller and smaller steps because we are in uncharted territory here. It's the world's first furnace of this kind, and we are very careful because we have to produce commercial bottles every day. And then in a second phase, not planned yet, is that if we understand the technology and have validated this technology, we would like to exchange the remaining 20% gas by hydrogen. This is in the planning, but not. This is in our heads, but not planned yet. So this is what the furnace looks like. For people who know furnaces, these are a little bit. This looks a little bit different than a normal one. Okay. And of course, it's about results. If you look at the CO2 emission, the reduction of CO2 emission in this new furnace, it's immense. If you compare it to the earlier furnace, producing the same bottles with the same pool and the same cullet in the same site, if you compare this, then we reduced already at 60% electrical melting, we reduced 64% CO2 emission per bottle, scope 1, 2, 3. And when we reach 80%, this will be a 69% CO2 reduction. So this is an immense step we take here, and this data is externally verified. This is it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joris, for taking us through a world's first. You mentioned the question of colors, so that amber glass was more difficult to produce because of the oxidized color. I'm just wondering, so moving forward with the development of electric furnaces, how much these colors will affect the possibility for glass to be melted through electric furnaces, because we also see something similar in the recycling part of things, where there are different average recycled content rates for the different types of colored glass. So it's usually much higher for green glass, a little bit lower for amber, and a bit lower for flint. Do you think secondary raw materials could help to somehow solve the problem in terms of color uptake for electric furnaces, or it doesn't affect at all the possibility to melt this glass in an electric furnace?
So we have to distinguish two things here. In all electric furnaces, there is a cullet limit, because at high cullet level, it will melt too fast, and the batch blanket is unstable. So this issue is not linked to the color you want to produce; it's linked to the cullet level as such in all electric. In this new hybrid technology, we will be able to run production with cullet levels as we know it in conventional furnaces. So we started this project with amber because that's the most difficult color. Everybody agrees. It's the most difficult color to melt at high electrical heating ratios, not being linked to the cullet. We used the 70%. We could have used more. We would have liked to use more, but it has to be there, of course. So this new technology will be able to melt the different colors. We start with amber because that's the most difficult, but to melt the different colors with their known color levels, and these color levels can be increased up to where the color of the glass gets too much impacted, as we have now in conventional.
Okay, and another question that comes to mind in relation to recycling is that we often talk about the quality of cullet coming into furnaces. Are there different specifications on the cullet coming into an electric furnace compared to a conventional furnace? I.e., are you looking at different types of contaminants maybe than a conventional furnace? Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
What we know from all electric furnaces is that they are the cullet quality is more critical. So organic contaminants might give too much foaming in all electric furnaces. We also know that grain size is more critical in all electric furnaces. And with this new next gen furnace with the hybrid technology, we use normal cullet. The normal cullet we also use in other conventional furnaces. We use T120, the German cullet specification. The difference is that we install more metals is of course a critical contaminant because we have so many bottom electrodes. So that's why we said we use the T120 the existing cullet specification as we know it, but we install more metal detection and rejection systems in our cullet system feeding this furnace.
Okay, understood. And the last one that I have for you, I mean, I was talking in the introduction about the 80-20 ratio in the decarbonisation strategy of the glass industry, 20 being process emissions. If you go towards your 80-20, which is, as I understand it, 80 electric and then 20 still, some form of, natural gas or oxygas. What would that mean in terms of that relative scale of the share of the process emissions in the overall decarbonisation strategy for the industry? Because I would imagine that the more you decarbonize on the energy source, the more the process emissions represent a greater share of the whole carbon emissions for the glass industry. So could you maybe elaborate on how far that relative share of process emissions could go?
I think you're fully correct. If we so this is a trajectory to decarbonize the glass, the energy for glass melting. We will, and this is already reduced by 64% now, but 60%. Okay, 64 if you take the LCA. So this is already a very big step, and we try to go to 80% electrical heating, reaching 69% on LCA basis. But that leaves, because we use the normal batch and cullet, that leaves the CO2 from the batch. So this will become relatively more important than as the remaining CO2. That's fully correct. So we have to work on that. And the first thing to work on it is increasing cullet levels. And with this technology, we believe that is possible. You can reach much higher cullet levels than in all electric melting. So close the glass loop is super important. Yeah.
Well, we'll do our best. We'll do our best. And there's also a question in the chat, which might be actually quite a good one to finish off with, in terms of some of the plans that you have at Ardagh based on the project that you have presented. Are you already thinking a little bit about rolling out the further rollout of this technology, maybe across other plants? Do you have any roadmaps in place that could help you scale up as you go along, or at the moment are you extremely focused on this project, trying to make something out of that? Where are you at in that general process?
I think both is true, Jean-Paul. First, we are focused on this project. We are validating the technology. Does it work? And if we want to build a new one, does it look exactly the same, or do we have to change some things? So at this moment, we are validating the project, the technology. Sorry. And that's running. But at the same time, we of course make plans to roll out this technology, and it will not be only this technology. This technology will be an important one in a portfolio of technologies for the future, which could be all electric, which could be hybrid, which could be hydrogen. It's not a long list, but it's a list of possible technologies to roll out inside Ardagh Glass. And one of the considerations there, I touched upon it, is grid capacity. You need to have the electrical grid capacity at a plant being able to receive such a technology. And we know that not all our plants have the available grid capacity. This will be one of the major topics, not only for us, but we think for the glass industry and even the wider energy intensive industry, getting the grid capacity you need to roll out decarbonized technologies.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joris, for sharing this part of this journey with us. It's obviously extremely important, I think, for the value chain to understand whether furnaces of the future will affect some of the specifications on color quality, some of the potential to uptake secondary raw materials. So I think you've given us a few pointers there, and at least we can work jointly to make it happen. So thank you so much, Joris, for having been with us.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. So that was a deep dive into the furnace, one of the furnaces of the future. Now we're going to take a look at a product sector because decarbonisation is not just about the glass industry, it's also about the products in the end that are packed in glass and how we can also influence the carbon emissions throughout the whole life cycle of the product. So I am pleased to introduce Stéphanie Lambert. She is Director of Sustainable Development at FEBEA, the French Federation for Beauty Companies, should I say. Stéphanie, welcome to the show.
Hi Jean-Paul, thank you. Hi everyone. Well, first of all, I would like to admit that I'm not a specialist of glass packaging, the glass industry. So please bear that in mind for the Q&A session afterwards. However, I am a specialist of the beauty sector and its sustainability journey. So that's what I'm going to talk you through in the next 12 minutes. So the cosmetic industry, the French cosmetic industry, is a very dynamic one, driven by exports. French companies are world leaders in this aspect. What's interesting, having in mind when you talk about export sales, is that it means that French decisions that will be taken by French companies will impact products that we sold all around the world. So that somehow can change some dynamics. I also wanted to point out the weight of different product segments. On the French market, at least, perfume represents 22% of sales. That's in value. So the sector is really driven by the need to reduce its environmental footprint. There are different pressures, notably three. The first one is the increasing in number and in complexity of national and European regulatory constraints. So that's a very strong driver. Then there are obviously consumer, employee, association expectations. And then the need to preserve the competitiveness of the sector, what may be for both large companies, but also a very big number of smaller actors that sell products all over the world. And so at FEBEA, we help our members through a multi-level action plan that will obviously be about packaging and circular economy, climate, water resource, that's very, very big subjects, biodiversity, everything related to formulation, and in a broad sense, CSR. We published a study earlier this year about, it's a study we conducted with the consultancy company Carbon 4 to measure the carbon emissions of our sector. The main goal, beyond just figures, was to identify major collective actions that would be both relevant and impactful to reduce these emissions. So, well, the first takeaway is that the use of products sold represents nearly half of all greenhouse gas emissions. But what I wanted to point out mostly here is that a quarter of the rest, the 55% left, can be traced to packaging. So that obviously is a massive lever for reduction. And on a global point of view, plastic is still dominant in the beauty packaging. So glass, element missing. So glass is actually only 16,000 tons of cosmetic packaging on the French market. And that's only 0.6% of the total of glass household packaging, food and non-food combined. So we're talking about a very small part of the global packaging and glass packaging put on the market. One of the major action plans we had in the last years is what we call the Plastic Act, which is a sectoral trajectory to reduce the plastic footprint of French beauty companies. So we had targets for reduction, reuse, recycling, and reincorporation. there are two things that seem particularly interesting for me, and reason why I wanted to talk to you about this, although it's about packaging, is that first of all, it sheds light on the collective ambitions that the cosmetics sector has for its packaging. That goes far further than just the material used. And the second thing is that once you reduce the amount of plastic packaging, in some cases there can be substitution, and glass can be one of these materials that may be used to reduce the amount of plastic. So whatever the material, there are many specificities to consider for plastic cosmetic packaging, sorry, not plastic. First of all, we are with packaging with a very long shelf life, typically 3 years, but even it can be longer. We have complex formulas with sometimes dozens or more ingredients. There's very strong health constraints linked in particular to the lifespan and the requirements for consumer protection. Products are used in a bathroom, which is humid, even tropical environment. And I could also add, it's also a slippery environment with hard surfaces. So that's sometimes a bit difficult for glass. And then the last point is that for cosmetic products, especially perfume, skincare, makeup, packaging is really an integral part of the consumer experience, the attachment to a brand or to a product. And sometimes even the packaging is really part of the product itself, in the sense that it provides functions that can be inseparable from the product itself. So that's the point with mascara, for example, but it also can be to a certain extent with perfume. So packaging is extremely important for the cosmetic sector, and its importance goes far beyond just the function itself. So if we look at glass cosmetic packaging, it's mainly used for two types of products, perfume and creams and balms. So glass bottles for perfume will have to protect perfume from air, heat, humidity. There's also the high level of alcohol content that will require packaging that will be the most inert possible to preserve the fragrance. And jars for creams and balms will also have strong constraints for stability because they always contain active ingredients, and also for microbiological protection. And then we come back to all the aesthetic and luxury marketing codes that will reinforce the impact of packaging. So you have the thickness and weight. That's really part of the consumer experience, and especially when you move upmarket. You often find numerous decorations, lacquering, metallization, although there is a tendency for some kind of simplified luxury premium look, but still for you can also have associated elements that are not necessarily compatible for recycling. And in a whole, you have this high expectations on perceived quality, heavyweight packaging produced in very small quantities, relatively speaking. So that all brings to a high unit cost. So what are the different levers to reduce packaging impacts? So if we use the Plastic Act, you have reduction. So that's also by optimization of glass weight and thickness. Reuse is a very important way to reduce packaging. So we have an increased demand for refills at home or in store, and that has implications on screw rings. So here you have a couple examples. And then recycling, and reincorporation of recycled material. So to reduce glass weight, there are a few examples. Here you have one for a very luxurious product where the supplier and the brand managed to reduce by 50% the glass weight and the CO2 emissions since 2016, while retaining the obviously mechanical resistance and the marketing the beautiful, luxurious look of the product. There's another point very important is for recyclability, to avoid disruptors, remove non-compatible closure systems, but there's also the question of non-translucent glass that won't be properly sorted during the process and therefore will not be recycled. So here's an example of a supplier and a brand that worked on developing technology that are compatible with recycling, such as lacquering with micro droplets, instead of an opaque lacquering. Another way to move forward to integrate a higher level of recycled material is instead of finding solutions to make the change imperceptible for consumers, you can also embrace the visual characteristics of recycled glass and make it part of product marketing. So that's, I believe, something quite clever. And so there's an example of a skincare brand that has 25% of post-consumer cutlet, but with a let's say, recognizable look. Other example, here's the other strategy with innovation to preserve the aesthetic of the product, keep that extra transparency and make the change imperceptible for consumers. Often luxury consumers are not really interested in the amount of recycled material in their packaging. They just want the full experience. And then two other examples of other brands that have reduced the environmental footprint of their packs with up to 40% recycled glass. There again, I think kept the beautiful, the brand image is completely safe, and there's a reduction of the carbon emissions. Just to finish, I have one last slide. The other challenge is to increase the collection of glass cosmetic packaging. We know that cosmetic packaging is less recycled than other types because they're used in the bathroom, and often you do not have a recycling bin in your bathroom. So the distributors have recycling boxes available in their stores. There's a specialized company called CGL, which has expertise in unpacking and sorting and retaining maximum of both the glass and also the perfume inside. L'Oréal has a whole campaign, let's sort it out in style, with Citeo. So we're trying to manage to collect as much of these glass packaging as possible. And I'm finished. Yes, that's right.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stéphanie, for giving us some insights on your sector, and well aware that you're not necessarily a glass specialist. And I think you point out in the different levers that you have that, packaging and circular economy is only one. And I think that's also important to understand the scale of things on our side. And then within that, glass is also only a part. So that's obviously why you're not necessarily an expert on glass. By the way, we'll have our next episode of 90 Minutes to Close the Loop. We'll be precisely looking at bathroom glass. So we'll be looking for some case studies to discuss and present before the end of the year. So it's a nice link
for shower gel and shampoo. Lots of brands decide that they will simply not use glass because they consider it too dangerous. So
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see.
Exactly.
But we'll be discussing that topic. One question I have for you is related to a point that you made at the beginning on exports, and that you're a very export-driven sector. And we know that in Europe there are more and more stringent requirements on packaging that are really driving this push towards, extra collection, extra recycling, extra recycled content, extra reuse and refill, and all these kinds of measures. Do your companies see the same kind of trends around the world when they are exporting, or are they seeing a kind of big dichotomy between requirements on the European market, and that's what's actually driving all this effort, and then they're doing something else when it comes to exports?
That's an interesting question. I really believe the European Union is on the forefront of all this movement towards more recyclability and recycled material. I wouldn't say, I'm not sure, but that there are probably other regions or other countries that have ambitious regulations as well, but probably nothing as massive as what we have here in Europe. And it's true that it's a bit difficult for the French companies that have that sell actually a very small part of their products on the French or even the European market. They have to apply European regulation, but they also have to make their products available and desirable for everywhere around the world. And there's also the problem of this material that is leaving the EU and that's going to be disposed of in other regions, and therefore you cannot collect and bring back to integrate in other products. So that's on a global perspective an issue, not necessarily the most important for glass, because I believe that there is enough glass recycled cutlet available. It's probably more difficulty for plastic, but still.
And one question as well in the chat that I can try and link to something that I had in mind as well. So the question is, are you expecting producer responsibility or extended producer responsibility to become a greater part of the cosmetics industry sort of landscape? And link to that a little bit, because obviously you're representing a sector that is, that would be perceived as very premium, sort of edging towards, luxury. And I would imagine it might be quite difficult for companies in that sector to talk about what we talk about in Close the Glass Loop, which is waste management. There's a sort of a big...
You would be surprised. No, you would be surprised. No, waste management is a real question. EPR schemes, I think, are probably not perfect in the way that they're implemented, but still it's a powerful tool to make sure that the recyclability and the creation of recycled material is really scaled up properly. So I believe that the EPR schemes will be developed when in countries where they're not yet. Obviously, in the EU for consumer packaging, I think we have them everywhere, so that will be fine. And just for the last part of your question, cosmetics is a very consumer-oriented industry, but it's not only about glamour, and everything related to plants, factories, and disposal of waste is something that's really in the DNA of the people working on packaging. So that's probably why there are so many projects between suppliers and our brands, because they I think fully understand what's at stake here.
Okay, brilliant. And then maybe just a last question on the recycled content aspect. So we know that one of the issues is that obviously that the packaging itself needs to be very premium, very transparent, and that can be a little bit difficult with the colors that you can get in precisely waste management, to make sure that you're only getting the most transparent cullets coming from waste in the end. Are you seeing, let's say, a big trend in the industry towards a greater uptake of recycled content in the packaging, or do you rather think there will be a kind of limit, and it would already be very good if everyone could try and get to that limit?
Well, I mean, people around the table here will probably be able to answer better than me about what's the technical limit. But if I'm sure that if you could develop a perfume bottle with 100% recycled material, I don't see many brands saying no to that. As I said, I think there are really two different strategies. You can either embrace the difference of recycled material and try to make the most out of it, or you can try to innovate and keep that perfect transparency and crystal look that you like so much about glass. So I think we'll continue to see both. There will probably be innovations to have all these perfect characteristics of glass, but also probably there'll be some trends to maybe explain to the consumer what it means, what's behind that, and maybe have them accept some less than perfect or a different kind of perfect.
Yeah, brilliant. Because we've had previously, similar talks on this. It can be just a little bit less than perfect, and actually, probably not many people would realize. And yet, in terms of uptake of recycled content, it can make a big difference. Maybe there are some similar projects in your sector. Thank you so much, Stéphanie, for having shared your insights from the beauty and cosmetic sector. Thank you.
Bye.
So that was Stéphanie, and now indeed we go more into the waste management part of the story to try and see what are the innovations to try and increase the uptake of recycled content in a furnace. And I'm pleased to introduce Simone Tiozzo. He is head of the R&D department at Stazione Sperimentale del Vetro. Simone, welcome. Tell us something then about how furnaces can increase the use of secondary raw materials through glass sand. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So today I will try to present you a bit, to introduce you to glass sand, which could be considered the plan B to increase the recycled content into container glass, for example. Just a few words on my institute before starting. Stazione Sperimentale del Vetro is the Italian National Glass Research Institute, and we've been active since the 1960s. So there's a lot of story beyond our backs, and we hope for a bright future. And we have been always at support of the glass sector, and we've been working on the glass recycling, call it glass sand recently, and all the decarbonization, sustainability of glass since a long time. So that's in our DNA. So we've been working before on this topic. Before Close the Glass Loop, we were trying to do the same thing that you do right now. So we do a lot of things in many sectors of the glass, both all the suppliers, producers, users of glass. We provide a lot of activities and services. But what is most important regarding today is that we've dealt a lot with the cullet recycling and with also the byproducts of the cullet recycling and cullet treatment production process. So right now, you tell me why we're talking about glass, we're talking about a lot of things. Why glass sand? Why talk about this secondary raw material? Because it is a possible answer to the need of increasing the recycled content of glass in glass production, and so it can help in closing the glass loop, because the recycling of glass, we all know, we are all on board on this topic, provides environmental benefits in terms of decarbonization and sustainability of glass production, both from the point of view of process emissions and from the point of view of energy consumption, for glass melting. So it's extremely beneficial. But there is a problem. We are working in increasing the amount of available cullet and the quality of available cullet for many years, from many point of view. We've been working, and you have been working to foster this in a way, by making educational campaigns for people to understand how it is important to correctly dispose of glass containers, for example, in order for them to be then collected and recycled. There's been a lot of work on technologies to do better sorting, to increase the quality of cullet. There's been a lot of activities in the logistics of the cullet of the waste glass collection, so that always better starting quality in the raw cullet that gets to the treatment plants is delivered, so that also the final quality is better and the yield of the process is better. But there is a problem in certain places, in certain countries, where, for example, the production of glass gets exported a lot, like in Italy, okay, where cullet recycling is a zero-sum game. You don't recover all the bottles that you produce. You cannot collect them back because many have been sent abroad with the product inside. So, if I want to increase my recycled content, I'm basically stealing available cullet from my competitors. How can I get a further increase in recycled content in my bottles where I can? Well, glass sand can come to help in this, in the sense that it can allow to get back into the loop, into the closed loop, okay, some rejects, some byproducts of the furnace-ready cullet treatment process. So when you have glass collection from the waste, the raw cullet is then treated by the plants that separates a lot of the parts of, I'm sure just write this right now, may separate a lot of contaminants from the good glass, okay, but some of them can be further processed to be recycled back into the production of glass bottles, so bottle to bottle, so really closed loop. And this is very positive, because this can allow to enhance the recycled content inside glass bottles. So what we're saying is that glass sand can be a way to it is complementary, okay, to all the other initiatives like design for recycling, better logistics, education, etc., and allows to increase the recycling rate and the post-consumer recycled content in the produced bottles. What is glass sand? How do you make it? What are the regions that we are talking about? Glass sand is an amorphous fine-grained secondary raw material. Basically, it's made up by fines, okay, that are normally sieved out from the glass cullet during the cullet treatment process, and because they are problematic from the technological point of view, from the detection point of view, because basically the machines, okay, that treat cullet and separate and remove contaminants cannot work below a certain dimension of the fragments. So the fines are sieved out because they cannot be treated and very well detected. And glass sand is made up also by the opaque materials that are rejected by the machines that select ceramic fragments. Sometimes ceramics are put erroneously inside the bottle banks, for example. These materials can create defects in glass bottles, so they are sorted out, they are rejected by the machines that control the quality of glass cullet, and this material can be used to make glass sand. Because what we do with this with these two sources, okay, of material, we grind them in order for them not to create any more problems to the future, glass articles that will be made by melting this material. Why we choose these two rejects? Because, well, basically the fines are mostly made of glass, and they can constitute a relevant part of the incoming raw cullet, because in certain places the collection is not made, for example, with the big bottle bumps, but it can be with compactor trucks that can crush a lot of bottles, for example. And while on the contrary, the rejects by the machines that the material that is rejected by machines that reject opaque fragments that are interpreted like ceramic fragments sometimes have false positives, because sometimes there is labels that remain attached on the glass fragments and they are seen as opaque. Sometimes there is very thick, very dark glass, like in some champagne bottles, that is interpreted as opaque glass, as opaque glass, as opaque, and so as ceramic. And also the machines that reject the ceramic fragments have to shoot with compressed air jets against the fragments that are seen by the detector, and they have basically a certain target size that can be larger than the piece that has to be shot off. So they shoot also some innocent good glass. Okay, so what happens is that sometimes even the 80% of these CSP, so ceramic rejects, is in fact still good glass, and it is very good to get it back into the loop. And how do we do it? Basically, the companies that make glass sand mix in different and appropriate proportion the sieving fines and the ceramic rejects, material. They apply several protocols for the pretreatment of this material, for example, to remove the organic contaminants, or for other pre-selection for remove some lead fragments and so on. Then they grind this material to a suitable grain size, typically below 0.8 millimeters. They sieve it also above a certain threshold to take out the ultrafines that could lead to several other issues in the furnaces. And then this material is provided to the glass makers that can recycle it in their furnaces, in addition to normal furnace-ready cullet, and they can use it to produce new bottles. Of course, there are some caveats, because you have to consider that this material may have a different capability of influencing the color, or the redox state of the glass, and also there are some final product specification on glass articles, for example, for high tire markets like cosmetics, perfumery, spirits, etc., where basically this secondary raw material is not very suitable, because basically the highest quality glass has even low furnace ready cullet recycling rates. So we have seen just some minutes before 20-40%, while on several other markets like the beer market we can get to 70, 80, 90% cullet recycling rate, with different colors, of course. So there are some caveats in the usage of this material. But basically, if you work on that, you can even get a 5 to 10% additional recycled content, post-consumer recycled content in your glass. Of course, this requires some attention on both the sides of the equation, both the producer of the glass sand, that has to master the process of producing this secondary raw material. They has to ensure a stable quality in the final product, okay, in its own glass sand with variable input materials, but it is basically the same story again, like the production of a furnace-ready cullet, because it's the input material is basically rejects from the same very material recovered from the municipal waste. And but on the other side, the user of glass sand has to tailor his own process to be capable of taking into account the potential different effect on color and redox state, overcome some dusting issues or carryover issues. So the dust inside the furnace or dust into the workplace. So there are some technological solutions that can be implemented, and can also some other production technicalities must be correctly set up. But if you do this, you can even ramp up more than 10% content of glassy sand. So basically, that's it. Thanks to this secondary raw material that is basically produced by reprocessing some rejects of the main process of cullet treatment, you can get back into the loop an additional amount of recycled glass. Okay, so you can increase increase the circularity of container glass, which is of course a feat that is very important for the decarbonization sustainability of all the glass industry.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Simone, for telling us about glass sand. There are a couple of questions actually that I think I'll take straight away because time is running and I think they're quite good questions. The first one is in relation to the recycled content with glass sand compared to recycled content with, let's say, typical furnace-ready cullet. Do you have the same efficiencies in terms of emission reduction in the furnace when you're using glass sand as opposed to furnace-ready cullet? Is the impact on emission reduction the same?
Basically, it is, because glass sand is basically very fine, close to very fine cullet. Okay, in most places, glass sand is even made up just of fines that are ground to just a correct grain size to be sure not to have issues with the small ceramic parts, to have them digestible by the furnaces. So basically, in some places, it's really ground cullet. So the benefits are practically the same. You can change something in the kinetics, okay, of the energy reduction, but more or less the environmental benefit is the same. The thing that is different is that if you can recycle a bit of glass sand on top of the normal recycled content that you get with the furnace ready cullet, because you have a certain availability of furnace ready cullet, but you can get additional recycled content thanks to glass sand, well, then you're getting the plan B to close the glass loop. You're getting the boost, okay, in the recycled content by glass sand.
Yeah, you're getting the plan A and the plan B, I would say. Yeah, in fact, yeah. Brilliant. And then the second question, which is quite tricky because it's something that we hear quite a lot. There are some, let's say, crushing systems at the point of collection, especially in the hospitality area, like Horeca, who have like collection systems that kind of crush the glass so that it doesn't take up too much space, right? Now, would you also be able to recover glass sand from this type of crushed collection system, if I may say, or do you need to be in a very controlled treatment environment in order to be able to produce glass sand?
Where you see a challenge, there is also an opportunity. So someone, provided that this amount of material is actually not negligible in terms of amount, okay, could of course tailor something for that. There are people that have started making some type of glass sand starting from windshields, treated windshields, dismantled windshields. And so where you see an input, and then you can see a market for that, of course someone would tailor something for that. So for sure it is possible. Glass sand can be made from far worse material than that and still have a good enough quality to be recycled to make bottles, not to make I don't know filtration media or fibers or whatsoever, bottles. So of course that provided they didn't crush a lot of how may I say dishes, okay, together with the glass, that would be criminal, okay. Then that stream of material could be of interest.
Yeah, it's always this question of what is actually in the crushed material, I suppose. And the very last one, and I'm going to have to ask you to answer extremely fast if you can. Is there experience in using glass sand in flint furnaces, or is it more in colored furnaces? And can you give an expectation maybe on the developments there in relation to colors?
Yeah, I think the most experience is the usage of glass sand into colored furnaces. The flint is always delicate, okay, in terms of quality and in terms of color control. So, yeah, this is the challenge for the future. So to make glass sand that is suitable also for high quality flint glass. That is a challenge, okay, I think. But as every challenge is the opportunity of someone that will take up the technology or the methods and will create this product.
Yeah, looking at challenges as opportunities is probably why you're in R&D, Simone. So thank you so much for having shared your ideas and thoughts on glass sand. And yeah, I hope it opens some questions also for the audience. So thank you so much. Brilliant. So that was the first part of our session on the recycled content of decarbonisation. And now we move to the annual event part of our session, Close the Glass Loop Annual Event 2024. And our first speaker to give us a bit of an overview of what's going on with Close the Glass Loop, and especially, I know something that you're all waiting to hear, the new glass collection for recycling rate. That will be provided to you by Vanessa Chenot. She is Head of Public Affairs and Product Policy at FEVE. Vanessa, good to see you. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you for this annual update on the statistics. But before we go to that, a little bit of teasing. I just wanted to draw your attention to a new document that we just published, so that you can find that on our Close the Glass Loop social media, website, etc. That's our roadmap to optimize the closed loop recycling of glass packaging. So the idea basically is that we for obvious reason, in Close the Glass Loop, we focus a lot on collection because we have this 90% collection target. And why this is absolutely key, we believe that there are also things that need to be done to optimize closed loop recycling. So that's the whole idea of this document. So I won't go into the details. I will go straight to the conclusions and the proposed action. But I really invite you to have a look because it's a very informative document. It's nicely laid out, and you can find a lot of information about the benefits of recycling glass back into bottles, what happens in the glass cullet recycling facilities, what are the challenges, etc. So I really invite you to have a look. They're nice visuals, so it's very worth it. So as I mentioned, I'll go straight to the actions that we have identified. And the first one is related to collection, but not in the sense of increasing collection, more the link between collection and quality. So how do we ensure that the material coming from collection is of good quality? So there are a few actions that have been identified in that sense. The second action or pillar is linked to what we call cullet innovation action plan. So here the idea is that there is a step, an intermediary step between collection and remelting into new glass bottles. So that's the glass cullet recycling facilities in particular. And that involves techniques, technologies, investment into equipment to upgrade the infrastructure. And so as we improve glass collection, we also need to improve the process that sorts and recycles glass back into bottles. So this specific pillar is about that. And finally, the third work stream is about developing guidelines for product design. So here the idea is that we need to ensure that product design maximize the fact that packaging placed on the market is fit for recycling in a closed loop. So what we have started doing is really to map and analyze national guidelines on design for recycling to see what are the convergences, etc. And the idea at the end of the process is to provide consistent recommendations to help brand design their glass packaging in a way that will bring improvement to the closed loop. So again, I encourage you to have a look at the document itself. Before I go to the statistics, just a word to say that one of the key missions of Close the Glass Loop is to shed light on best practices. And so you can find best practices on our website, but we're also investing now on improving our YouTube channel, where you can find short videos of best practices that are quite inspiring. So we will populate this section as we go along. So have a look. It's YouTube, Close the Glass Loop, easy to find. So now the moment that you're for recycling rate. I hope you like the animation. So basically, according to our latest figures that we have compiled in the past months, the EU average collection for recycling rate for glass packaging in 2022 was 80.2%. So that's a steady evolution compared to 2021, when we were at 80.1%. So you have the map. We will put on the website and on Close the Glass Loop channels all the statistics, so you can find data per country and also the evolution year on year for the collection rate, packaging placed on the market, etc. So I really invite you to have a look. There are a few things that I would like to highlight today. The first one is in relation to the methodology. As Close the Glass Loop, because we have our 90% collection target, of course, we try to keep track of the collection rate. But what we realize is that it's more and more difficult because member states have to report to the European Commission a real recycling figure. So it's quite difficult in some countries to have the collection rate. So I want you to be aware that some of the figures on the map are real recycling rates and not a collection for recycling rates. So the average that we have is probably a conservative estimate. So that's on the methodology. Then in terms of the trends, what this map doesn't tell you, if we just focus on the EU average and the ratio, is that we have a numerator, we have a denominator. And what is notable is that despite the collection rate being stable, more glass packaging was collected in 2022 than ever before. So we have reached a record high level of 12.4 million tons collected in 2022. And this is an increase of about 542,000 tons over the previous year. And so what it means is that the amount of glass that was collected kept up with the significant increase in the amount of glass that was placed on the market. So around 4.5%. And this, of course, is a very positive trend in glass collection efforts across Europe. So I won't go into the details, but just to give you an example, that's particularly visible for Bulgaria, for example, where the amount of packaging placed on the market increased by 12%, while the collected tonnage grew by almost 23%. So quite huge increase. And it's worth noting that Bulgaria, but Slovakia as well, are now above the 80% collection rate. Another example is Portugal, even though it's quite different, but there the 9% increase in the amount of glass packaging collected did not keep up with packaging placed on the market. But what is interesting is that we know that there are discussions on the denominator, so on what's placed on the market. And the reason is that, as in other touristic destinations, there is likely to be a difference between what's placed on the market in Portugal and what is actually generated as waste in Portugal, given that tourists buy products packed in glass, let's say Porto wine, they bring them home, they consume the wine, and they dispose of the glass bottles. But that's not being done in Portugal. And so this could be an explanation for this post-COVID data in Portugal with tourists coming back. So that's an interpretation, but that's probably something to be further investigated. So that's the collection map that we publish every year. And what we've tried to do is to look at collection from a different perspective. And here what you can see is the additional effort that is required for each citizen in the EU to achieve the 90% collection for recycling rate. So this map is based on 2021 figures, so we'll have to update it, but that's already a good indication. And so what you see is that across the EU, each citizen has to collect an additional 3 kilograms of glass to reach the 90% collection target. So that's another perspective. And also important to keep in mind that with Close the Glass Loop, we have a voluntary commitment to achieve a 90% collection. But we also have a mandatory 75% recycling rate to be achieved by 2030 in the packaging waste directive. So that's an obligation. And this map reflects the recycling rate that is reported by EU member states to Eurostat. And so on the basis of the countries that have provided data for 2021, a few have not, the average EU recycling rate was 77%. So that's already above the PPWD target. And just to note that we are updating this map whenever new data are available. So a few different ways to look at things. Another one is the evolution of our collection rate since we launched Close the Glass Loop. And so what we see is that it's clear that to hit the 90% target by 2030, we really need to ramp up efforts in separate collection of glass packaging from households, but also from the hospitality sector, which is quite key when it comes to glass packaging. And we believe that to achieve this objective, we really need to get Close the Glass Loop national platforms and national action plans moving. So these national platforms have been and are crucial to our mission. And that is why during the first half of the year, we have visited them to better understand their context, their challenges, and their plans to achieve 90%. This has really been a very enriching process, and I would like to take the opportunity of this event today to thank our national partners for the time they took to share their insights, their experience with us, and for their commitment to Close the Glass Loop more generally. So we are working right now on our 2025-2030 Close the Glass Loop action plan. And we will probably very much focus on providing greater support for the development of national action plans, but also to the emergence of new national platforms. And also what is key is to provide more opportunities to national platforms to exchange on their best practices and discuss their challenges. Talking about national platforms, this year we are very pleased to welcome Romania and the Netherlands as new platforms. So that will really help us further strengthen our network and our capacity to implement tailored strategies at the national level. And Close the Glass Loop is always seeking to develop more of these partnerships across Europe. So if you are willing to join the club, don't hesitate to drop us an email to contact us, basically. So thank you very much for your attention, and let me know if you have questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Vanessa. There's lots of poppings and chats and messages. So, you might want to have a look at some of those, but I'm afraid that we don't have that much time to do live questions. We have to move on. But thank you so much for giving us the overview and the news on the 80.2. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you.
So, as Vanessa said, we have 2 new national platforms on board with Close the Glass Loop since this year. And so I'm delighted to first go to Romania to get a bit of a lowdown on what is happening in Romania for Close the Glass Loop. And we're joined by Constantin Damov, who is the president of the Circular Economy Coalition in Romania. Constantin, take it away.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us. Because we feel honored to start to speak about our efforts in Romania, since we are the last one joining this select club of Closing the Glass Loop. And we are the 13th member since only 14th of March this year, when in Bucharest we had a very interesting gathering thanks to Close the Glass Loop, and the decision was very prompt taken there. Coalition for Circular Economy, representing the recycling industry also of glass packaging in Romania, and the decision was taken together with the Minister of Environment, which was present, and he was agreeing that the support of the authorities will be present on this trip. Also, I'm happy, and it's very interesting that Romania and Netherlands are present here. It's a warming up of the next football match on Tuesday. And let's go into presentation. So where? You see, Romania is in the part of Southeast Europe. And if we look to the other members of Closing the Glass Loop, we are a little bit isolated. So it was quite an interesting decision. We have been assuming that trip for 90% collection. Well, what? We start with the quantities, and we are estimating that this year the put on the market glass packaging will be 440,000 metric tons. And it's interesting, Romania is having, since the end of last year, the DRS system, which I will say it's a very ambitious as well, because they are covering all the glass packaging for beverages, but including wines and spirits as well. So the quantity that is on the responsibility of DRS, it's about 300,000 metric tons a year. And we are seeing a very fast growing these quantities in collection. And the rest of 140,000 metric tons are on the municipal and commercial flow. And these are the jars and sauces and other diaries, packaging that is not included in DRS, and it's covered by the municipal collection and the EPR schemes efforts. Well, it was said before the results of collection in Romania. We have also the last year, 2023. In Newstat, we have only 2022. So now we are talking about another 3 points. It's about 67%, another 2 3 points above the result of 2022. It's the trend is showing that the collection is growing, but that was just before the DRS start. Well, how is collecting today? We have two separate streams, and the DRS was so ambitious because we really have been showing a very low performance on the municipal collection, and the authorities have been really pushing crazy into direction of starting DRS to have a collection system that is more performant. So today we already will see in the country more than 4,000 RVMs, and estimated will be that in the next couple of years will be about 10,000, where people can return the bottles. But in parallel, we have the bottle banks, but it's collected commingled, not on colors. It's a green bin that you can find it on municipal places of collection. Expectation. Well, of course, joining the closed loop glass, uh, we are expecting to reach at 90% 2030, and we have two roads to reach and two flows to push for the 90% collection. Well, the DRS, talking with the organization, they are expecting to collect 90% already by 2027 at its maturity. So the system, it's proven that in all the other countries are reaching values above 90%. But I have a comment here asking some on of this. For example, in Lithuania, I was asking the general manager there of the DRS, and he say, well, it's very difficult to reach 90% because some bottles are breaking before being delivered to the DRS RVMs, to the machines. And of course, if they are not in a full body, they are not accepted by the machine, or sometimes they are losing the labels and they hardly reach like a 85, 87%. We'll see, and we'll wait to see 2027 what is bringing new to us. Well, the main challenge is still the collection under the EPR schemes, how to grow from 68 to 90%. So, who are the stakeholders on this trip? Of course, Coalition for Circular Economy, which is taking the lead and will push in all direction to improve collection. Then the Minister of Environment, where we have a promise that legislation will be improved accordingly. Then, of course, municipalities and businesses where the glass is generated, and EPR schemes as well. Now, Romanian efforts will consist, and where we see that we need to give a push is a new legislation for boosting the collection. And here we really need to raise a little bit the ambition and the percentages of our targets of collection above European ones. We need to go for digitalization of collection in all, we will need to have national programs of information and education of the consumers. And of course, municipalities should build an ample and adequate collection infrastructure, which today, I will say, it's still suffering of lack of equipment. Well, I hope I've been in time, and we'll keep you informed, and happily will contribute to the success of this initiative. And well, happy birthday. It's the fourth year of closing the glass loop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Constantin, and we'll do our best also to support your efforts. It was a really great moment back in March in Bucharest. So hopefully we'll be able to go back. So thank you so much, Constantin. That was a perspective from Romania. Now we go to another perspective from the Netherlands, another platform that joined this year with Joost Lavèn. He is the chair of Stichting Duurzaam Verpakkingsglas, SDV, who is leading the way on the national platform in the Netherlands. Joost, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Paul. And I see that we're already reaching the 90 minutes, so today you get 10 minutes free. So stick with us, and you can also see what good things are happening in the Netherlands. So my name is Joost Lavèn, working normally for OI Glass as a sustainability manager, but like Jean-Paul said, also the chairman of the SDV, the Association for Packaging Glass in the Netherlands. And we are here since 2024 with our Close the Glass Loop initiative in the Netherlands. So first, a bit about our association. So we have 3 members. One is OI, glass container manufacturer, 2 facilities. The same for Arda Group, also 2 facilities in the Netherlands. And we have Malta as the only one recycler in the Netherlands with 2 facilities. But as you can see with our little country in the northwest of Europe, we're also doing a lot across borders. So we're exporting and importing ready-to-go glass to the furnaces, but also glass from the municipalities. So you see a lot of movements across borders, and actually we're getting a lot of glass from the Belgium recyclers, for instance. We cooperate, of course, a lot with the association of the EPR, that's called Verpakt in the Netherlands, and we also have an association for packaging material that's called STIMO. That's also next to glass, it's paper, plastics, cans, and also wood. So in that kind of perspective, we're trying to influence the EPR scheme to get some more focus on glass, as we see that the ambition and the goal of Verpakt is much more on compliance than it is on to increase the recycling rates. And as our customers are mostly asking about higher colored rates and recycled content rates, we should really move the needle towards a higher collection rate. So what are the numbers for the Netherlands? It's in Dutch because we're sharing this a lot also with municipalities, with governmental departments, and also with our customers. So that's why it's in Dutch. But I think you can see the numbers and understand the numbers. So we're putting about 900k tons of glass on the Dutch market every year. About 400 of that is the returnable scheme, but the reused returnable scheme. So there's no one-way glass in deposit in the Netherlands. And about 500 kilotons is about one-way glass. And you see in the numbers that about 14% we are losing because it's not ending up in the glass bins. So that's about 72 kilotons already lost because our civilians are not able or don't know how to separate their waste, and it's not ending up in the glass bin. If it ends up in the glass bin, we are losing another 7%, about 36 kilotons, to losses in the sorting process. So about 100 kilotons is being lost and is not ending up in our furnaces because of the current scheme. And those are numbers for 2021, but if you see the 2022 numbers, and even I have the preliminary numbers for 2023, it's all kind of the same. It's about 86% of collection, 79% of recycled content. So, and we should increase that. It's 100 kilotons. Well, if you have it in your garden, you have a big pile. So we should be able to get it back into the cycle. So that's one of the reasons why we set up the Close the Glass Loop the Netherlands. We try to copy the initiative in Europe. So you see a lot of members on European level also back in our an initiative. So we have our association, the Stichting Duurzaam Verpakkingsglas on the top with the 3 members, Malta, OI and Ardagh. But we also invited some other recyclers, not without a production facility in the Netherlands, so Sibelco and GRL, for instance. We invited some municipalities, the 2 biggest ones in the Netherlands, so Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Also the Federation for Food and Drinks in the Netherlands, even some ministries that taking care of waste. Retail was part of the initiative, and also some waste haulers. We invited a few more, and you see especially on the producer side, so the big breweries and the Cokes and Unilever, for instance, they were very interested in the initiative, but were not able to be present at the meeting. So I've put them in the corners. So hopefully next time we can put them also in the middle. And one of the big things I think we still have to solve is that also to get the HoReCa sector on board. They were not that interested yet. So hopefully for the next meeting, they will be interested to also join our initiative. So what are the actions we have discussed during that meeting? It was a very good meeting. We had a very good interaction with all the players on the table, despite all the different backgrounds and all the different goals and responsibilities. We had very good interaction. We defined 8 action points, and I think I still have the time to discuss them all, so I will try to. So action 1 is really on the data. Like I said, we're losing about 14% in the recycling scheme because it's not ending up in the glass bins. But is that 14%, for instance, all general waste, or are we losing something in the HoReCa or in the retail sector? We don't know exactly. So that's something we would like to investigate a little bit more. And if it's, for instance, in general waste, are there certain groups you should focus on? Or is the main issue students, elderly people, or communities? We don't know. So that's something we would like to get more data on. And we can imagine also the type of municipality can be an issue. Rural areas or in the city centers, for instance, very different collection schemes, of course, and we may have to really specify the way of collection over there. So if you look at action number 2, it's really about knowledge of the producers in our countries, but also externally, of course. And we would like to set up a seminar or a webinar to really discuss with them the opportunities in glass. So that can be about color specifications, about CO2 emissions of the Dutch glass industry, because we see a lot of difference in between the global and European standard numbers and what we do in the glass industry in the Netherlands. So we would like to really educate also a little bit the producers and the importers in our country. Action number 3 is really about standards. So what we see in the Netherlands, every municipality has its own system and can decide and can manage their system how they would like it. So there are no really standards. So there's a lot of variety in types of glass bins. So color sorted, not color sorted, the color of the glass bin itself, the form and the size of the glass bins are all different. So I think that's really important to standardize also the glass bins to be more recognizable for the civilians. And I think communication should also be standardized. And that's also linked to action number 5, educate. We have done a quick scan on a big chunk of the municipalities in the Netherlands. And what we have seen, mainly on communication, and we did that together with the paper industry. And what you see is that there is no standard communication in the municipalities. They do everything on their own. Sometimes they are communicating yearly, sometimes they're communicating quarterly, sometimes via our website, via social media, via the local newspaper. So you see a big variety in there. And sometimes they don't even have the knowledge about the recycling rules, for instance, for glass or paper. So we think there's a big opportunity over there to standardize and to communicate in a more strict and standardized way. So the other thing I would like to point out is the reuse So we have talked about reuse, but as an association, it's a very difficult. We have a very difficult position, and producers should decide on whether we should reuse a system and set up the system. And we, as glass producers and recyclers, we are a part, but it's difficult for us to initiate. And of course, we have some other actions, actions number 7, action number 4, and action number 6. But due to the time, I think it's better to skip those. But if you have any questions, of course, about those, so we can also answer them. But I think the setup of the system and the setup of the meeting was very good, and hopefully we can have a very good, we can make some progress and have some good follow-up on the actions defined, and we can hopefully increase the collection rate from 86 to 90, but I would like it to have it even above 90. So thank you very much. Well, any questions? I don't think we have the time, but they can be sent in afterwards, of course.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Joost, for giving us those extra 10 minutes. But I think, people are still online, and I would like to thank them. And I think it was important just to show, what is going on in these new platforms. You did that. And, I wish you well in building this, multi-stakeholder platform. It's not always easy. It takes a bit of, rowing time and coordination time. So good luck, and we'll do our best to support.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Okay, so that was our Close the Glass Loop annual event, 2024. I hope you get a sense that, this is a very dynamic sector. There are a lot of projects going on. There are a lot of, dynamic partners across, 13 national platforms who are pushing through national action plans on glass collection and recycling. As Vanessa said, we've done a big tour of the national platforms, and we've come back with lots of ideas for our 2025-2030 action plan to help support those national action plans across Europe, and we'll get there. So happy 4th anniversary, everyone, and enjoy the evening. Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.